Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Alfred Ng.
You may want to shut off your FaceTime app. There's a bug that allows people to eavesdrop on your conversations by initiating a FaceTime call, even if you haven't picked up. Essentially, it turns your iPhone into a hot mic.
Yeah, so the bug works by taking advantage of group FaceTime, which was the feature they had announced during the last WWDC.
Right.
And basically, when you FaceTime call somebody, then you add somebody to the group, but you add your own phone number. And for some reason, this bug assumes that everybody on the call has accepted it, even if you haven't.
Oh.
So the person who is being FaceTimed, you could basically just listen in to whatever they're doing, even though they didn't accept the call. Now, it still requires your phone to ring like it would on a FaceTime call, but
Right.
most people, they can leave their phone at their desk, they can leave it in a bag or just have it in their pocket on silent. So they wouldn't even know about it if this was going on.
So even if it was dialing, it was ringing, you're not picking it up, they can still hear
Yeah, it
whatever's
would
going
basically
on.
be a hot mic and they can hear what's going on.
Right.
And Apple said that they're working on a fix for this,
Right.
but for the time being, they've just completely disabled the group FaceTime feature.
Right. Well, and it's also good for you if you want to disable your FaceTime app, right? Just in the settings menu, you can actually disable the app.
It's a very simple switch.
Very simple. And they say that a fix is coming later this week,
Yes.
right? All right. So it's a bit of bad timing because tonight Apple is reporting its earnings, fiscal first quarter earnings. Now, they've already kind of telegraphed last month that the results would be bad, disappointing. Revenue would be below expectations. I think what we're going to be looking at is forecast for the next quarter's revenue to see if like the pain continues. But it really calls into question the demand for these new iPhones, right?
Yeah, I think, with the iPhone XR that they put out and the XS, this whole idea that this doesn't look that different from the 10 that you guys released last year. And also, I'm paying like $1,000 for this. Why would I want to upgrade to a new phone that quickly? I think, Tim Cook did note that was not, that was one of their bigger issues for their earnings.
They had a couple of reasons they cited. I mean, China obviously was the big one, demand in China. Also, kind of an odd one because they had offered that free battery replacement service, or not free, but discounted.
Yeah.
A lot of people took them up on that offer, and that, if you've got a new battery, that basically eliminates a big reason why you want to upgrade.
I mean, kudos to them, though. I still think that was the right thing to do. But,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Lastly, Huawei had a very rough Monday. The Justice Department announced 23 indictments for fraud, obstruction of justice, and theft of trade secrets. And this is centered around two different cases. The first being the theft of intellectual property related to Tappy. This is a T-Mobile robot arm that tests the durability of touchscreens. And then the second involved the company evading sanctions to work with Iran, which is tied into CFO Meng Wanzhou, which I probably just butchered. She's currently being held in Canada, waiting extradition to the U.S. This is a lot of bad stuff for Huawei.
Yeah, so this indictment, we've been kind of expecting this for a bit. Department of Justice officials have been talking about, cracking down on China a lot more as far as technology goes. In an indictment around December, they talked about how 90% of economic espionage cases were related to China.
Yeah.
And with Huawei, the U.S. government has always kind of been on edge with them, even with this major trade war going on between the two countries and these concerns over, these companies stealing secrets.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that with the T-Mobile instance, they had actually settled in a civil suit 2 years back. Huawei paid out $4.7 million. But in that case, they basically blamed this like rogue element within the company for stealing intellectual property from T-Mobile. This case, they basically brought this back up and said, no, it's not a rogue element. It's holistic. It's systematic within Huawei.
Yeah, they had shown emails from Huawei executives basically rewarding any employees that could find and steal company secrets from the U.S. So that's crazy.
Yep. It's a lot of drama for Huawei. To be fair, we want to note that Huawei has denied any wrongdoing. For a full coverage, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Thanks for listening.
And thus concludes another broadcast day. Thanks everybody for joining us for the recording of the podcast. Now's the time that you can send in your questions and comments about the topics that we had to very, very quickly breeze over, and we can expand on the thoughts while I go ahead and export this audio so that you can subscribe to it and listen to it again later. In the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about this, the FaceTime bug. So a lot of people are curious. We frame it around the iPhone because that's probably the most common place that you're going to use FaceTime. But does this affect other devices? Does this affect your laptop? Does this affect your iPad?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it also affects Mac OS and anything on iOS. So
your iPad, your Mac, anything that has FaceTime is affected. We would suggest disabling FaceTime on all of your devices until that fix comes out.
Yeah, anything that has group FaceTime at least. So that's one of their later features. If you do have an old iPhone that is not updated without that feature, to be fair though, you should still update to your iPhone anyway because it does have more security features on a later patch, even if it does come with this unfortunate flaw for FaceTime.
Or maybe just wait for that new update to come. It's supposed to come later this week.
Yeah. I wanted to ask what that jazz song was that played us out, just because that sounded like hella smooth. It makes us look way cooler than we actually are.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll make you a mixtape later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how many people have actually disabled their FaceTime, or more importantly, how many random FaceTime calls have you gotten since that bug was revealed? Really puts a magnifying glass on who wants to listen in on what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like you would get if you got a random FaceTime call, that's like a pretty red flag to hang up. But yes, I've disabled it. I disabled it almost immediately. So again, we would recommend you do the same.
Yeah, I mean even if you do hang it up though, like you don't know how long they were dialing for or anything like that. So for safety measures, well, one, turn it off. But if you don't want to turn it off, I don't know why. I would recommend just not saying anything ever.
Or you could
it's like Quiet Place.
You can count oh, that's good.
I love that movie.
I still haven't watched it. Don't spoil it for me.
I'm not going to say anything. Watch it. It's the best horror movie I've seen in years.
Better than Bird Box?
I haven't seen Bird Box yet.
Okay.
It's in my list. Trust me.
It's like the same thing, right?
No.
Well, you can't see in one of them.
Right. I mean, all right, whatever.
All right, so we have to turn off our FaceTime. We got to cover our cameras. We should probably be stuffing cotton or something into the microphone.
Never talk.
So
just don't talk ever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what's the next thing we're gonna lose? Like we have these wonderful devices with all the miraculous communication capabilities of technology, and we have to disable every aspect of them because they're all broken. What's next?
Also, just wear a ski mask at all times to avoid facial recognition.
Also, I feel like this is
and rob banks.
This is just interesting karma, considering that again that billboard they put up at CES, where what goes on your iPhone stays on your iPhone.
I mean, to be fair, it's true. It just they're still both iPhones. That you need to have an iPhone to spot someone else.
You're right. So it just that ad just seems silly and sillier with more time.
It's just not your iPhone that it's staying on.
It'll be interested to see how many questions Tim Cook gets about this on the call tonight.
Yeah. I'm curious as to folks out there, maybe we should recap one more time real quick how to disable FaceTime. It is super easy. We'll recap it here for you in a sec. But in the meantime, we're curious if you've already gone ahead and disabled FaceTime, if you did it because of this, if you did it way before because you had insight or just knew better, and who is still yet to disable your FaceTime if you have an iPhone, and why or why not you may be going down that path, how you feel about this, if you're concerned about being eavesdropped on. Just go ahead and chime in the chat or hit us up on Twitter. In the meantime, Christopher says, I tried the Apple bug and it didn't work. So there's another one. Let's see if anybody out there is...
couldn't replicate the problem?
It depends on when you tried replicating it, because they disabled group Hangout. I'm sorry, I keep saying they disabled group FaceTime a bit after they had announced it. Not they announced it, but after it was revealed.
Right.
So there's a chance you might not have been able to replicate it because they disabled it in time before you did that.
But does that mean that it's safe for everyone, or no?
I would just still wait until you get the patch, to be honest. I mean, unless you really need to FaceTime. I mean, that's consider your own threat model.
I mean, my parents definitely need to FaceTime with my kid.
Oh.
It's a must.
Yeah.
there are other video phone alternatives out there.
I know. But my parents,
and they're all broken too.
But yeah,
Facebook.
my parents don't know how to use them, so they only know FaceTime.
Yeah, I had my FaceTime disabled a while ago just because my parents like to FaceTime. They accidentally press call on FaceTime.
They
rather
butt
than
dial
just
you?
call.
They butt FaceTime?
No, but when you can call and there's two buttons, where it's you can do a FaceTime call or a normal call. They keep doing the FaceTime call, and so I just turned it off.
All right, well, I guess you're not completely terrible kid.
Yeah.
So one more time, how do we shut that off?
You go into your settings and then you go to on iOS there's settings for every single app. Then you go to FaceTime there and then you can turn it off from there.
Yeah,
from
it's just
one
a
tap.
toggle.
Yeah.
Got it. So Timothy's asking, as far as the person who actually discovered this bug, is Apple going to like hush them or pay them out?
So Apple has their own bug bounty program, but this was revealed on like a random tweet. Which doesn't, and that tweet from the last time I saw had like 67,000 retweets. This has happened before with other Apple security vulnerabilities that just goes out on Twitter for the world to see. If this had gone through Apple's bug bounty program, we wouldn't be talking about this now. So I don't think that this person is going to get that money.
Yeah.
Taking some more questions from the chat. King just says why iOS can't go 1 year without smooth software without it being a big issue. FaceTime is always freezing and glitching in between apps, and it's still the same no matter how much software they bring out. Just the same old problems over and over again. We got some dissatisfied iPhone customers out there. But let's go ahead and move on to Huawei. Abby says this is a shame. The Huawei phones are great, which I think we can attest to. I think Andy Hoyle is a big fan of them. He certainly talks about them a lot in his reviews. What does this mean for Huawei? Are they going to kind of get a kibosh on their business development? It's certainly going to impact them here in the States, not that they really have a presence here in the States.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine this is adding fuel to the fire of sort of this increasing skepticism around Huawei for at least the telecom infrastructure side. I don't know. It's kind of 50-50 on how this affects their phones because, as you know, Andy loves these phones. They're pretty popular. They're the number 2 smartphone maker in the world right now. It's definitely going to be a big blow to their reputation, but I imagine that they'll still be able to sell those phones. A lot of the concern has always been around whether or not Huawei was selling equipment that China could use to, I guess, basically build a backdoor into government infrastructure or systems. So the phones have never really been they weren't sort of known as or seen as like the real threat, although I know like FBI.
Yeah, no one in the intelligence community is allowed to use a
Huawei
or ZTE phone because of these security concerns. The U.S. government has not, publicly stated.
They've never said anything about them.
As far as, we know that they are spying on us via devices because of this, and this, but they have made recommendations basically saying don't use this.
Right.
But they have not come out with like any evidence in the same way that the Department of Justice has against these economic espionage charges.
Yep.
Okay, so from Timothy, he's asking again, do we think that Apple's going to actually disclose their sale numbers in the near future?
Oh, like their iPhone sales numbers?
Yeah,
no.
so we know how bad it really is.
They just, they
never do.
No, they have.
Used to.
They used to the whole time, and then the last quarter, they basically said, we're not doing this anymore, which was a big red flag because when you basically reveal less, that usually means bad things, right? So you don't clam up when things are good. And so, I imagine a situation where Apple could like offer selective numbers to kind of paint a rosier picture than what reality actually is, by saying, oh, well, we had a record number of iPhone XR sales or something, and not giving the full picture.
A record number in the first year that we've been selling that.
It's a record for iPhone XRs.
Yeah, we've sold more iPhone XRs this year than any year in the past.
Exactly. No, but don't expect them to start divulging iPhone sales again anytime soon. They just made this move. I think they took a pretty big hit for it. A lot of people started expressing skepticism about Apple. And you can imagine that, having taken that hit, they're probably just going to stick to their cone of silence at this point.
Cone of silence. Cone of shame.
Cone of shame, sure.
Do we think this is actually going to have any kind of long-term impact on development schedules? We always talk about how they roll out so many products in a year, and it's just continually underwhelming because everything feels rushed out the door. Tim's asking about possibly rolling back to an 18-month release schedule so they can start actually ironing out these bugs, I don't know, taking their time, making good product again. Do you think they're going to learn their lesson?
They definitely took their time with this iOS update. Group FaceTime was not like here's some random feature that like we just want to add in. They bragged about this like crazy.
They announced it back in May, right?
Yeah,
and it took a long time for it actually to come to fruition.
Yeah, I think that, but I do agree that they'll probably spend a lot more time bug testing for things like that, because this is a serious privacy issue for them, especially when they talk up privacy so much.
Yeah.
You know, they might take that and you know, as a lesson and try to, you know, be more focused on stopping these bugs before they go public or anything like that now. But again, I do think that they did put a lot of work into the group FaceTime update.
I would say that from a hardware perspective, I mean, they're going to keep to the annual release cycle for iPhones for sure. Like the iPhone is sort of the bread and the butter. It's the big revenue driver. They're not going to give that up. Every year there's going to be a new iPhone, regardless of whether or not there's a lot of innovation in them. You know, I think they're taking a little bit more time with certain of their products. The HomePod, we haven't gotten an update on the HomePod in a while. The iPad has kind of an irregular schedule. So, and then there's the iPhone SE, which we may or may not ever see another one. But in terms of like the core iPhone franchise, that's coming out every year, regardless.
Fair enough.
They gotta make their money.
How would these Huawei indictments have any other effect on other Chinese phone manufacturers?
It's limited in terms of the effect. I mean, this is going to have a chilling effect, I think, on the broader U.S.-China trade discussions that are going on right now. But in terms of like ZTE is still kind of like climbing back from like basically death's door, having dealt with their own sanctions last year. But in terms of the other phone makers, they aren't in the news a lot in terms of those security concerns. It's always been Huawei and ZTE. There are a number of other guys. There's OnePlus or Oppo. There's Xiaomi. There are a number of these Chinese phone makers that they're doing well, but don't seem to get the same kind of headlines, the same kind of controversial headlines as Huawei and ZTE. So I imagine the effects can be pretty muted there. Cool.
All right, we're just about out of time. We've got Huawei stealing trade secrets. We got FaceTime.
Allegedly.
FaceTime eavesdropping on you. Google's getting trolled to hell and back, and Facebook is stealing all your privacy data. Who is the worst right now? And that's more of a farm out to the chat.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question.
No, I want to hear your take on this too. Who is the worst right now? Because they're all bad.
I mean, I don't know. It's all negative news right now. I wouldn't say I couldn't say what would be the worst.
My dad is very bad at keeping my secrets.
So there you go.
When I had a girlfriend in high school, he told like my whole family. So I'm gonna nominate him.
Wow, that's harsh. You like threw your dad under the bus.
Terrible person. Worse than Google.
Yeah,
and
you
Facebook.
are a terrible son.
They don't watch this show, so it's fine.
That's good. That's true. I'm gonna say, you know what? I'll nominate Ben. Ben's the worst.
Ben is the worst. In the world of broken privacy and stolen data and Facebook and leaks and bots and Russia, Ben's the worst. Yeah. Let's make sure he sees this later on, shall we?
I will, for sure.
All right. That is great, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're out of time. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow. Just again, reminder, the show doesn't surface on the CNET YouTube page proper anymore. We're rolling it back in order to try to appease this YouTube algorithm. We're still doing the show clearly as we always will and always have. But if you want to see the recap or the replay of the show, just go find the playlist in the CNET YouTube page. It'll be in there. It's just not going to pop up to the top of the feed and get promoted anymore because they don't love us enough. That's not true. It's, again, just the algorithm playing that game. But yeah, all old episodes are still archived in the playlist. You can find them there, including today's, or subscribe in any other number of platforms from Livestream to Periscope. Everything's still there. All the links are in the description below. And thanks, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Roger?
Yep, the 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, the Amazon Echo, and of course, CNET.com. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
See you.